Okay. On. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our segment today. We're going to be discussing the then and now schools. Skills that basically we did maybe 10, 15 years ago that was able to advance our career. But now we're focusing on more skills that's relevant to the modern and ever changing, quickly changing healthcare and professional landscape today. I want to talk to you, Grant, today about I'll put me on the chopping block today, right? How I climbed the corporate ladder where I started over 20 plus years ago in healthcare and STEM, and the strategies and the skills I took pre-internet, pre-social media phenomenon, right, that we're in. So I do want to encourage our guests, our learners that's on today, to go ahead and engage with us. Write a text below. Let us know where you're tapping into from, your location, and also be as engaged in this conversation as we hope you can, because I think that's going to bolster the learning experience and really focus it on what skills are really relevant to extend your professional visibility now versus then. So thank you so much, Grant, for joining today in this live. Thank you.
No, I'm looking forward to this. This is so important. What you just stated, like
Mhm.
how you were able to ascend in the corporate world, it is different than it is today, and we need to unpack that. And there's a lot of different layers to that, depending on your age, your skill set, what you're doing. And it's no longer so much about what your boss thinks about you; it's what Google thinks about you. It's what
Correct.
LinkedIn thinks about you. And most importantly, what do you think about yourself?
Mhm.
This is what we need to unpack. We don't want to be shy out here either. We want to have a clear conversation with our entire audience. Make sure that you put your comments in the chat, and we're going to, because you might be on one school or the other. You might be like, nah, Grant, I don't know what he's talking about. Andrea, I don't know what she's talking. This is what we want to know what you're talking about. So let's start with you. Talk about your career, Dr. Court.
Okay, and that's a great question. It seems like I've been through so much in 25 years of my career, but like I said, as you know, and we talk about this quite a bit. I started my career as a hospital transporter, right? But I knew there was more in me. I wanted to really explore all the leadership angles that I had in me. So I'll be honest, I really 2 decades ago, it wasn't this big social media platform. So I had to build my career brick by brick. And what does that mean? I had to get up in people's faces and introduce myself one by one. Relatively in my organization in the hospital at the time. So then I had to basically allow my work to supersede other technicians or other hospital transporters. I had to be very proactive, and lo and behold, you never know who was watching me. Certain doors start to open up. But I'll be honest, Grant, that took over 20 years. So, what can you say, because you are the brand specialist? What can you say the kind of techniques that I used then, kind of like I said, shaking hands one by one in that one hospital organization that I started of? What that was the skill then, but how would you curtail a more strategic move now on how to brand yourself as a professional?
Well, that's very, very important. And let's first start with the facts. So, and I remember this even me 10, 20 years ago. A lot of people used to stay at a corporation, let's say, for a number of years. You might have been there 10, you might have been there 20, you might have been there 30 years because you can basically get hired and retire there. That was the goal, right? You get hired and you're going to retire there, no issues, no problem. The fact of the matter is this, and this is according to Harvard Business Review, that the job tenure has dropped significantly. What does that mean? The average tenure of a professional is only 4.1 years.
Mhm.
You have 4 years now to climb that ladder, which it's not going to be that realistic depending on where you're hired. And this is another important stat because your C-suite level, people that are in the senior leadership, their tenure is even less than that. So it's about maybe 3 years or more. So here's the hard truth. In today's world, hard work alone will not, well, it'll get you noticed, but it won't get you the visibility, the credibility, and the influence outside of that one circle. And I want our audience to truly understand this as they're listening. What happens right now? Today is Friday, and you can see we got our colors on. It's Valentine's Day, right? If you lost your job today, what does that look like? Who can help you? What does your circle look like? Who are your advocates? What are your mentors? Right? You're outside of that organization now. You're no longer there. You're out there looking for another organization. What have you done to cultivate an experience around your credibility, your abilities, and your skill sets that allows you to step freely into a new experience? Or will you struggle like a lot of people will? You might between one job and then finally getting that next job where you walk in the door and get a paycheck. That could be 3 to 6 months. Let that sink in.
That's really good information. That really makes me realize how much the system has changed on how visible we are. And like I said, I thrive in hard work, right? But now I see, looking back in retrospect, the people that noticed me was only in my organization, right? So what's the pros and cons of building a brand on a social media platform? I guess so you want necessarily, like I did many years ago, just only exhibit your work in one isolated institution.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. You don't want to just be known in that small circle. It's about your circle of influence. You want to widen your circle of influence. All the things you talked about are still relevant today. Hey, you got to be good at your job. You got to be, hitting those numbers, hitting those metrics, doing a good service for where you are at, so that your immediate circle, they become your advocates, right? You want them to be an advocate for you. So if a opportunity did come up within the department or within the corporation or where you're at, you have the opportunity to get first dibs, let's say, at that. Good opportunities, right? Yeah. That has not really changed. What has changed is this: how we hire individuals. And I want you to take note of this. Before, a person, let's say a hiring manager, you can look at yourself. You've been in that position. A hiring manager may be looking at, all right, who do I have on my bench? Who's there? Who can do the job that I have open? And I might look at that bench and like, I'm not sure that's it. And that's when they start going out to either executive search or they go out to HR, right? And they start getting a slew of resumes and CVs, that type of thing, to take a look at and see who they might. Here's a fact: 85% of jobs that are filled today are through referrals and network, and not through a resume that's been on your desk. This is a fact. So if you are a good person with a good track record, but you're not well known outside of that circle, it's going to be much harder for you. Anybody can read a resume. And if your resume is not sizzling on LinkedIn already, before you need a job, you need to correct that. Because the first thing that anybody's going to do, whether it's the hiring manager, whether it is the HR recruitment office, or it's an executive search, is they're going to look you up on search and social. And if you haven't curated a story, and I said a story about yourself, how you have challenged different things in your career, how you've overcome, what are the results? That anybody can read a resume or CV, but they can't always get the story. And that's what personal branding is all about. You're telling your story, you're showcasing your expertise. You didn't have that platform, Andrea, right? Now you do, right?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't have the platform, so therefore I didn't have the reach. And that's really important to know that 85% there is a hidden job market. I guess that's what you're trying to say, is that there's a hidden job market that you can tap into if you have the right brand strategy, right? So I'll be honest, I'm a first generation healthcare, not executive at the time, but healthcare professional. And I really was just throwing some some darts against the wall, and I wanted to see what stick. I wanted to, like I said, work hard and prove that I was meant for those higher leadership roles, which it did serve me. But I think looking back, the newer skills grant, we can be more strategic. So is there any type of step strategy, 3-step strategy to really future proof your career as a professional in this new digital era?
I would say, especially when and what we have found, this is a fact. Especially, let's just talk about LinkedIn for a minute. Most people don't realize that only 3% or less of the total subscribers on LinkedIn actually post. It's
Really?
a very low number. It's a very low. Most people sit back and kind of read the content and try to sift through it, or they might be in specialized groups. So when you have an opportunity to showcase your talent, LinkedIn is a great platform because it's not a lot of competition. It may seem like it, but it really isn't, right? And check this out. This is a fact.
Okay.
Professionals who post regularly on LinkedIn have a 7 times more likely, or I should say, are 7 times more likely to be contacted for opportunities, right? Right. So we want to ask our audience, what is your biggest fear about personal branding, right? Let's get into it. Let's talk about it, because if only 3% of us are actually posting, and I just told you this stat that if you are 7 times more likely to get an opportunity if you're visible on the platform, what is truly holding you back? Maybe you didn't know this information. I just shared it with you, so there's no excuse any longer. Then you say, what's my process? I would say it's a 3-step process just to get started. We got to start talking about content, and we got to talk about thought leadership, right? It's not just about posting, so to speak, right? It's about, and I think this is one of the fears that people have, is what am I posting? What do I talk about? What should I put out there that I think will be interesting to someone else? And someone told me this about 5 years ago that made so much sense. You are in the unique position to be a mentor to the person you were 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's a great perspective.
Think about that.
Like that.
Think about 5 years ago, 2019. What were the challenges you were going across? Someone else is going into those challenges now. And because you have overcome, you mean you've been through the entire life cycle of that. You've gone through the challenge. You've gone through the transformation arc, the beginning, the during, and the end of that whole experience. And then you can begin to talk about it, whether it's a project or something that was work-related or industry-related, right? People want trends. They want insights about certain subjects that they just can't get by Googling for the information, right? So if you share insights that are content rich in your specific area of expertise, in your zone of genius, on LinkedIn at least once a week, you're going to get noticed, because when someone does start to look you up, they're going to start seeing insights, not just standard everyday commoditized information, right?
Yeah, that's good.
You like that?
Yeah,
So
I love that.
Now we go to step 2, networking and visibility. Now, as you stated, networking used to be one-on-one, person-on-person. I go to an industry event meeting, I'm going to network, and I'm going to get visible. That still works today. But what if you could 10x that, 100x that, utilizing a social media platform similar to LinkedIn, where you're not just talking to a small group of 5 to 10 people, but you're talking to 50 to 100. Let me give you an example. A lot of people like emailing, like they go to email, right? You can email people. You may send, I'm just going to say 300 emails. That's a lot within a 1 week period of time. When I put out one piece of content on LinkedIn, I typically will get 3,000 to 5,000 contacts, or I would say impressions per post.
Wow.
You're not going to get that on email. There's no is this the scale is so much more than that. So your visibility is 10x. And if you're strategic about it, you would engage with leaders in your field. Now, I'm going to talk directly to those people. I don't know about this posting thing and putting that information out. Go ahead.
It can be intimidating.
Absolutely. So some people aren't comfortable, but they are comfortable when it comes to engaging with content like they are right now. If you engage, hey, I know Andrea is hiring for a project manager, and I see that she's somewhat active on LinkedIn, and I see that she just did a post, and whatever that content was about, I'm going to then respond to that particular post with some insight. I don't just say, hey, that was great, something generic. Be specific about it. If you do that 2 times or up to 10 times per week to industry leaders that you really want them to know who you are, you're going to grow your brand exponentially, right? That's the step 2, right? That's tidbit number 2. Number 3, authenticity and influence. So when you get comfortable, you're comfortable now, right? You're starting to share content. You've got thought leadership. You know how to do this. You're starting to network. You're starting to engage. Now you want to get to where you're authentic with your influence. You start to step it to another level. Start sharing actual stories in your own life. Maybe that was 5 years ago. Those particular lessons, those particular insights. You start to engage and be very authentic. There's a guy that I love. This guy. His name is Roche, Roche, right? He was a former nurse, or I think he still is a nurse. He says he's son of a nurse. He posts maybe 2-3 times a week. He gets incredible reach. And all he is doing is being very authentic about himself, about being a nurse, being a male nurse, some of the obstacles he's come across, some of the things that he finds valuable. And he constantly does this. And he has over 36,000 followers now for who he is. So our audience, I want to ask this question. Of course, I'll be asking this to Andrea as well, is that who here has posted on LinkedIn in the past week? And be honest.
Yeah. And most of all, Grant was saying that. And whose posts have you actually engaged authentically with in the last week? So that's a great question. And that's a great, fantastic. And it says, wow, that is a surprising statistic. I'm surprised with that statistic as well, because like you said, it's not just taking a voyeur, just overlooking the surface level of LinkedIn. How are you really engaging? How are you really showing up? And like I said, I'll be honest, when I was ascending in my career, I took a more old school approach of climbing the career ladder. So I had to physically show up to doctors and scientists and introduce myself. But what you're saying, Grant, is that it's a new day, and it's a new way to really 10x your approach. That is fantastic. So
it's not even 10x. The statistics are ridiculous. Now think about this. And I'm going to speak directly to Emmanuel here.
Yes, definitely.
Because what you're looking at is everybody likes statistics. Statistics don't lie. They are the facts.
That is true.
So let's say you send that one email out, and just say you send it to 300 people. That's probably a lot. Most people don't. But you send that email out. It's one time, right? When you post on social media, it's something that's selling. Let's just pay it like this: selling or influencing on your behalf. For days, for weeks, for months, for years.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just go away. How many emails do you go back to and reread?
Yeah. Not that many, because more emails are constantly pouring in. But now that you say that, when I post our work and our skill development courses that we offer with Upskill, I notice it's posts that I put up there 8 months ago, and people are still liking and commenting. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I put that, but it's cycling through. It's on a rotation. Fantastic.
Yes.
So we have Barbara here, and she said, yes, proud to say I've posted on social media this week. Fantastic, Barbara. This is the skill that you really need to, like you said, stretch your visibility. And I love the point that you said. Don't just say, because I noticed on LinkedIn, you can just have nice job, great work, and that quick response. Really take the time and be strategic and show up authentic in a way that people can allow you to stand out and you can connect with them on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And think about this. And I want
Thank you.
people to go to LinkedIn. A lot of people are watching us on LinkedIn. There are several different ways of interaction. You can post, you can write an article, you can have an event, right? You can post a document there, right? Take a PDF and it'll just kind of flow through. When you realize that you can do text, audio, and video at scale of somewhat to the audience of a football stadium or a basketball stadium. If you look at mine, I've got like 21,000 followers, right? That means every time I post something, and this is how I think about it, I am posting to a sold out stadium
Wow.
for the Miami Heat. And they're listening to me.
Yeah.
20,000 people. Every time I post, I am posting to 20,000 people. I guarantee you, I don't send an email out to 20,000 people. I can't network like that,
No.
to 20,000 people. But I get a message out, and that's really kind of the key that we're talking about is the type of content. So people are not realizing, like, okay, I see what you're talking about. All of this is very, very important. And then you get into the how I'm going to do this. But this is what we're talking about: building the brand versus climbing the ladder. Now we've talked about some of these things. I want to get Andrea's perspective of what I've shared so far and what her take is on it.
My take is that there's an old school way of doing, advancing the skills, but things evolve and we evolve and strategies must change. So to really widen your visibility and really widen your approach of building a strong network so people can see your work. I love what you really said about your resume should speak for itself on your LinkedIn profile, right? Thank you, Ronald. It is a fantastic approach, so it's really gave me an opportunity to think back on kind of my more old school career ladder climbing strategies. Because when I did change and I wanted a new field into going into after an executive leader role, guess what, Grant? Only people in my institution knew who I was. So I had to start all over from scratch. But this is kind of the point of staying ready to keep from getting ready, right? It's about you showing up on this platform and really engaging in a meaningful and smart way to keep up with the new skill and the digital arena that we're all playing in on a daily basis.
I'm going to share a story, and I want our audience to really, really tune in to this. That applies to everybody. And it's a story about a king in a kingdom. He was elected king in this kingdom, and they had a tradition. Now you could be king and you would rule for like 4 to 5 years, but after your rule of being the king of this beautiful kingdom, you will be escorted to the boundaries of the kingdom and released into a wilderness. Like, wow, that's the cost to being the king. So this particular king, he said, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to rule for those 4 years. But while I'm ruling for those 4 years, I'm going to be building in that wilderness a new kingdom. I'm going to put in a whole new civilization ready for me. So when I am escorted to the edge of the kingdom, I will have a whole new experience ready for me. That is what I'm talking about with personal branding. while you are now in your position, you have a job, you have a career, you have a business, and you're doing the things you need to be doing on a daily basis. Think about that if you have a tenure of 4.1 years and you know this, what are you building for yourself for that next kingdom? How is that going to look? And are you narrating that story, or is that story going to be narrated to you? So when you're handed, hopefully not, you're handed that pink slip. And this happened to me 5 years ago. You asked me, like, I'll tell my own story. 5 years ago,
Yeah.
I was handed my pink slip, and I was like, wow, what do I do next? And I had not curated my next step that I thought, but I had built out such a brand at the point that people were coming to me and asking me, hey, Grant, you have such a great brand that you've built on LinkedIn. Would it be possible for you to be a advocate for me for my business? And then we'll work together. And that was the start of 5-Star BDM. And here I am now being ranked in the top 30 in the world for personal branding.
There we go. That is fantastic. And because of your stellar work and expertise, you've really mastered personal branding. And that's why it's such a pleasure and honor to have you on our Lead with Impact panel to speak about branding yourself as an executive and the marketing strategy, right? Because branding and marketing, they're two different vehicles. So we want to decipher the two, right? And that's what Lead with Impact does. It sits you at the table and you come in with all of your 30 plus years of experience and you're pouring these skills into us to show us how important it is and how to apply it in your everyday workplace so you can be seen as the executive and leader that you are inside and outside of the organization. That's very key. So I just want to ask the audience, like, if you have any quick questions for Grant, this is a great opportunity to pick his brain, to really expand upon our conversation of, like I said, the more dated strategy that I use, brick by brick, email by email, handshake by handshake, and how we've evolved as a society, right? With new tools right at our fingertips. What are some questions that you may have for Grant? Please feel free to drop that in the chat. Grant, this has been a great opportunity to talk to you. And it makes me, like I said, go back in retrospect, thinking about the then approach and the now approach. It's a lot smarter on how you're strategically giving us that 3-step strategy to future proof our careers.
100%. Let's give you for instance, I sold about in my career maybe over $500,000 or $500 million worth of services in information technology, health tech, and the like. I've had counterparts that sold probably 3 times more than that. However, they're not visible. People don't know their story. And because they don't know their story, they are seen as less valuable and less vocal, and they're not the one that's going to get the opportunity going forward. Because at the end of the day, people hire people that are going to make them better at what they do. And if it's the perception of that you are better, that's the narrative. Right? We want to be able to utilize these platforms to be an advocate for us. I know if you Google my name, I know what's on there. I know what's going to come up. I love a almost $1 trillion company promoting my brand. I love that. They're saying, Grant McGarr, you're great. You're top this, you're top that. He's got videos, he's got articles, but I've narrated that story. You have the opportunity to do the exact same thing because these algorithms and these tools, once you know how to drive them, can be your best skill set, tool set ever to actually amplify your mindset and get you to where you want to go in your career, because we want to tune into your passions. We want to know what really gets you motivated. What is your purpose and your mission for what you're trying to accomplish?
That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing your experience with us. What I know over the years, you change, you evolve, you grow. And although my story is different from yours, I didn't get the pink slip. I was actually getting a promotion, but I didn't want it. And I changed and I wanted to pivot. And what did that look like? And how had I created my narrative to create that kingdom for myself on the other side. And that was a lot harder if I had these skills that you're sharing with us today on how to really be more strategic in your role and kind of ride and whistle at the same time. So this is fantastic information.
Well, thank you. I think our time is up. We want to remind people again to go. If you're more interested in these kind of discussions, see us again next Friday at 3:00. But go to the website, go to upskill.edu. What's it? Tell us.
Upskill.edu/events, where we will be hosting not only the Lead with Impact Secrets to the C-Suites. I come in and share a lot of visionary and strategic leadership. We have guest speakers, CFOs coming in, sharing that financial acumen. World-renowned leaders such as Grant McGaw, really taking us deeper into an executive and marketing approach so you can speak the language of leadership. We even have a special guest, keynote speaker, Rosemary, coming in to teach us how to speak like a leader without saying a word. I love the art and the mastery that's going to take place at Lead with Impact. So definitely go to upskill.edu/events and secure your spot today. This is going to be a fantastic 2-day event at Miami-Dade College, March 22nd to March 23rd. And we'll see you there, or we'll see you next Friday on our next live event.
Absolutely. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's. Bye.